I'm going to call Select Board meeting for Monday, January 27th, 2025 to order. And note that we are going into executive session and we will not return before 6 p.m. Can I get a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I move to enter into executive session for the following items. Item A, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements, the Open Meeting Law, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 22F and G, to review, approve, and or discuss the possible release of executive session meeting minutes dated December 2, 2024. Item B, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements, the Open Meeting Law, Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Sections 22F and G, to discuss the possible release of executive session meeting minutes dated June 26, 2023. Item C, executive session pursuant to the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss potential litigation by the town if any open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. And finally, item D, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining for all town unions and non-union personnel, and the chair has determined that open session would have a detrimental effect on the town's bargaining position.
Second.
All.
Moved and second. All in favor? Pete?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Evening, I'm calling the Select Board meeting back to order for Monday, January 27th, 2025. We were in executive session earlier this evening. We took action on item A and B, approved those minutes, and we took no action on item C and D. Also want to remind you, as required by open meeting law, you are hereby informed that the town will be video and audio taping as well as live broadcasting this public meeting. In addition, anyone in the audience who plans to video or audio tape this meeting must notify the chair prior to the start of the meeting. Hearing no one, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I also want to note for anybody who might be here for or online for the housing production plan, we will not be discussing that tonight. We will be discussing that next week. We'll be putting it on the agenda. So apologies for anybody who only came for that tonight. Also, just want to note that under our presentations, we're going to start with B, update provided by Karen Shanley, Finance Director, prior to doing letter A. So moving on, anybody for public comments and announcements?
That's just a letter. No vote is needed.
Good evening, Emily Mitchell, Town Clerk. We are gearing up for the annual town election for 2025, so I just wanted to share some key dates and updates about what vacancies will appear on that election ballot. So Election Day is Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. Tomorrow, January 28th, is the first day that we are releasing nomination papers. So anyone who is interested in running for office for any of the positions that I'll announce in just a moment should stop by our office, and you'll pick up a whole welcome packet, including nomination papers, but we'll kind of walk you through step by step everything involved in the process of running. Some other key dates. So again, tomorrow, January 28th, is the first day that folks can obtain nomination papers. The last day that folks can obtain them is Friday, March 28th. So it's a full 2-month window for folks to make that decision if they're interested in running for office. They'll have until Tuesday, April 1st to submit those nomination papers to us. Our office does then certify the signatures on the papers. All offices require 50 valid signatures from registered Harwich voters in order for that person's name to appear as a candidate on the ballot. If someone does both take out and then return nomination papers, we certify them, but they later choose to withdraw their candidacy, the deadline to do that is April 17th. All of this is on the website, and we'll also distribute it to folks if you come to pick up nomination papers, but if anyone's listening now and wants the Cliff Notes, those are the key dates. Also for voters, so not necessarily for candidates, but anyone who's planning on voting in either town meeting or town election, we have a combined voter registration deadline, and that's going to be Friday, April 25th. So again, we're a few months away. I'll announce this many more times in the lead up to that date, but just if anyone's worried about getting their voter registration paperwork updated, changed, or filed with us for the first time in the lead up to the local town meeting and election cycle this spring, Friday, April 25th is the date that they want to keep in mind. All right, on to the offices that do have vacancies that will appear on the 2025 town election ballot. There are 2 vacancies in Select Board, 1 in Town Clerk, 1 in Monomoy Regional School Committee, 1 for Water Wastewater Commission, 2 for the Brooks Free Library Board of Trustees, and 1 for the Harwich Housing Authority. All of those seats, except for Housing Authority, carry a 3-year term. The Housing Authority seat is a 5-year term. Again, all of that information is on the website, but I did want to let folks know here today. Any questions on election information?
Any board members have any questions?
And then 2 other quick housekeeping reminders. January is also the time that our office does the dog licensing. So if any folks have dogs in the home, reminder that you are required to license any dog 6 months or older in the town of Harwich. The deadline is this Friday, January 31st. Any dogs not licensed by the 31st will incur a late fee. So we just want to let folks know as that deadline is fast approaching to stop in and see us in the clerk's office. This is also the time where the annual census is circulating. So state law in Massachusetts requires the town clerk's office to send out the local census to every household in town. Folks get it, it's a 1-pager. It has the information for every resident in the household. Your job is to look it over, make sure everything is correct. If it's correct, you sign it, date it, and return it to us. If anything needs to be updated, you can write directly on the form and then do the same thing, sign it, date it, and return it to us. But it is mandatory under state law for every household to return that to us, so we just like to let folks know.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Anybody else for public comment and announcement?
Thank you.
Sure.
Matt Sutphin, Harwich. Madam Chair, may I approach you? And
Sure.
I brought you a folder that pertains to the commentary.
Okay.
Free commentary.
Thank you.
Also brought one for the town administrator. Excuse me for exactly 4 seconds.
Okay. There isn't copies for everyone, so.
I'm going to read it because I want to be perfectly clear and not leave anything out. Before you is the cross-section of a healthy tree that was cut down to the ground. Only a limb needed excision. In West Harwich, there's a 5-foot aperture in the church roof, creating the fear of pending collapse. There's a problem with my hand. It should not require removal of my heart. This is Harwich. This is the Harwich we are having to get used to. The cross-section of the tree before you shows there was healthy heartwood and healthy sapwood, as attested by the one who cut the section for me. This tree needed a limb or 2 removed, not to be completely cut down. I will credit the town administrator with some alacrity once the offending limb was reported. Within 48 hours, the limb was removed, along with the rest of the tree. I have 20 or so photos of the tree being cut down. I'd be glad to share them. There's a good photo of what is known in the trade as the widowmaker, the dead limb, and that's in your folder. So how do we account for this extreme reflex action on the part of the TA and the highway supervisor? Beats me. Yet this is what we've gotten used to. Under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 87, any shade tree removal must come before your board. With this tree, the highway supervisor will argue that a safety issue existed and action needed to be taken quickly. Yes, it did. To remove the offending limb. Coincidentally, the following day I had a lunch scheduled with a tree warden. I'll relate to the board my sense of our conversation. The warden thinks we have much to learn. In the folder presented to you can be found information regarding Massachusetts General Law, Section 87. I presented this information before to you, but this is from the hand of the tree warden. I'll close by drawing the Select Board's attention to a photo in the folder. It's of the tree trunk standing upright. In the background are 2 trees in front of the Brooks Library. Recently, the town administrator authorized $20,000 for engineering, the future work to be done in front of the library. Authorization was for design work creating a new brick sidewalk surface and removal of the 2 existing trees, the trees to be replaced by something a little more than sapling. The sum of $95,000 has been voted at town meeting for the benefit of the Brooks Free Library trustees. The article presented at town meeting was absent an HDHC hearing about the subject. Comment from HDHC would have informed the vote. Not only do we clear-cut subdivisions in Harwich, apparently we clear-cut our main streets. And on a personal note, the town will soon be hacking into a beautiful mature tree in Harwichport. It was planted close to Snowden Road and above an existing sidewalk. The tree has a bronze plaque beneath it with my grandmother's name on it. Alice Lee Pierce, 1965. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment and announcement? Oh, don't forget your, okay.
Don't do it, Patrick.
Looks like an oak. Valuable tree. Pretty heavy. Yeah, good evening, everybody. Patrick Ott, East Harwich. There's been a lot of discussion and review of traffic studies. We just had one presented to us last week, and there's another one due shortly. How many of you are familiar with the Cape Cod Commission's Vision Zero Action Plan? So this has been, this is a project by the Cape Cod Commission. Vision Zero Action Plan is a pathway to a safer future that will tackle the root causes of all crashes, emphasizing those involving bicycles, pedestrians, and other non-motorists. They have a quick summary here of the last 5 years of crashes from 2018 to 2023. How many crashes on Cape Cod? I wish they had broken this down by city, or town rather, but in that 5-year period, 29,587 crashes, that's 16 per day. How many fatalities? 81 in that 5-year period, that's 16 per year. How many serious injuries? 644, that's 2% of all accidents are serious injuries. How many bicyclists crashes? 475. How many pedestrian crashes? 365. And what's the root cause? We're autocentric, right? We're building, building, building. Already our traffic reports indicate that we're overpopulated, that our roadways, our traffic system, our travel system cannot deal with the public that we have. So I really encourage the Select Board to follow Cape Cod's plan here. Vision Zero Action. It started in July of 2024. It's projected to go out through April of this year. Please follow this. Please follow their information, and let's have Harwich comply any way possible. All right? So thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
Vision Zero Action Plan, Cape Cod Commission. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else for a public comment announcement?
Good evening, Kara Mooney, Director of Cultural Affairs. New month ahead means more new programs. So, first is first, back in December I announced the Fiber Arts exhibit. It's been postponed till March just due to some very important individuals being out and want to have them a part of it. Coming up at the 204 for February, we have the Creative Workshop, which is a collaboration between the Cultural Affairs Department and Youth and Family Services Department, where we're welcoming high school-aged youth to join in creative workshops. This is on February 8th from 11 to 2. They can partake in photo voice, nature journaling, portrait painting, and expressive art. It is free and funded through various grant opportunities, and registration can be done through Ashling Symington, who is our director for the Department of Youth and Family Services. Then on February 9th, if you're not into football, I'm into football, but some people aren't. There is Super Bowl sewing from 9 to 5. You can bring a current project or join in on a project, like we'll have string quilting and jelly roll rugs available. There's no charge, but event registration is required, so we can make sure we have plenty of room. Then on February 14th, bring your gal pals out. It's Galentine's Day Workshop, which is going to be featuring needle felting with Nettie B by the Sea. We have Kids Create a TikTok Challenge by Dance Therapy 508. It's the newest social media trend. Yes, TikTok is back. And we're encouraging people to get up and dance. So that's going to be during February break. It's on the 18th from 10:30 to 12. Registration's required, so we have the right room for it, and it can be done through Dance Therapy's website. Then we also have a teen workshop available, which is create a hand banner with artist Nettie Berkeley, geared towards 6th and 12th grade graders, and again, it's on February 19th from 1 to 4. At the end of February, we will be bringing back Maureen Hancock for a Postcards from Heaven. It is a 7 o'clock show, Friday, February 28th. We kick off March with Jimmy Dunn Comedy, and we also have open studios that day, so open studios from 11 to 2, Jimmy Dunn Comedy Show at 7:30 at night. March 3rd, Harwich Cranberry Festival Group is bringing in China to Appalachia at 7 o'clock. Tickets are now on sale. And we also have our next evening at the 204, which has been a great success so far this winter, on March 28th from 6 to 7:30, featuring Heyday. Now for the Cultural District. Seaside Marketplace applications for summer 2025 are officially available and online at harwichculture.com. And we also are looking for bands for summer 2025. We currently have 4 bands already booked. We have 5 more to go. And the 204 Market is currently accepting applications for the summer 2025. We will be doing the blend of the farmers market again on the front lawn. And last but not least, we have a very exciting event to introduce this summer, which is the Cape Cod Showcase, a multicultural festival, the Cape Cod Way, which will be held on August 9th. More information to come. It can be found on Harwich Culture or at 204 Sisson or the Department of Cultural Affairs on the town's website. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. It's a lot going on.
Thank you.
I just have one if,
Yeah.
oh, sorry, Carolyn, please. No, go ahead, please.
I'm sorry.
No, that's
There's
fine.
even more
Didn't
going
see you
on.
back there.
Really?
Thank you.
Thank you. Carolyn Carey, Community Center Director, and I would like to just give you a quick rundown. As you all know, that February, the Community Center turns 25, so we are doing 25 of events in February. So the first thing is that you can pick up these booklets. They are online, and this will list all of the upcoming programs that we have. You can collect an acorn at every event that you go to, and then at the final party, we will be drawing numbers out, and if it's it matches your acorn, you'll be winning some prizes. Throughout the month, February 1st through the 21st, we have Guess and Win. Guess how many birthday candles are in a large jar to see? It's more than 25. Throughout February, we're, by popular demand, bringing back Fun Pants Friday. Might have been the town clerk's favorite event. So every Friday, we invite you to wear fun pants, whatever that means to you. Pants are required. You can come over to the community center. We will have a board. We're taking pictures of just the pants. People will be voting on who has the craziest, best fun pants in town. Prizes will be granted. We are asking people to design a birthday T-shirt for the community center. So the information, it's a free contest. We will be choosing a winner, a group of esteemed judges. Maybe someone sitting up there will help us choose the winner, and then we'll be using these as some of our prizes throughout the year. So design a birthday T-shirt. It would not be February or the community center's birthday if there were not ducks involved. So we will be, on February 1st, you can pick up your duck for duck decorating. And we will have the ducks on display the week of February vacation, and there will be winners. We give out well over 100 ducks, and they are always unbelievable, phenomenal ducks. Then February 4th, we will be doing a free concert with the Sound Dunes from 6 to 8 p.m. Also, on February 4th, you can bring shredding in, and we have a shredder that is going to be there, locked, stock, and barrel. All right, this one's a little candy, I apologize in advance. February 5th, which is, in case anyone is curious, it was the actual soft opening of the community center. So on February 5th, we are having Donut Day. So do not miss our upcoming events. We are partnering with Dunkin' Donuts, who have graciously provided us well over 100 donuts to be giving away. Those will begin at 8 a.m. Also, on February 5th, just because you're in the building, you might as well pick up a booty bag. We are partnering with the Harwich Junior Theater, whose February event show is How I Became a Pirate. So you can pick up a loot bag or a booty bag, and inside there's pirate booty, there are gold chocolate coins, and in several of the bags, there are tickets to a free show at the Junior Theater. February 6th, Betty Trummel, we speak of her programs often. She is coming back to talk about Iceland. She does a phenomenal job. Also on February 6th in the evening, free event, our spaghetti dinner. Then on February 7th, we'll be making some cards. You can choose from an array of different cards to make. All these events are free. We will be doing the trivia night on February 11th at 6 p.m., but it will be on pet trivia with the animal control officer. On February 13th from 12 to 3, we are inviting everyone to come over because we are making a video birthday card for the community center. You can stop in, just say hello, say what you like best about it. Wait, not what you like least, but you can say that, I guess, if you have to. February 18th at 2 p.m., we've invited Mad Science back, and they're doing a fire and ice session. That's during school vacation week. So also on that day, February 18th at 8 a.m., we will be having our duck hunt throughout the building. There are 25 small ducks hidden throughout the building. When you find the duck, you bring it to the front desk and you win a prize. Throughout the school vacation week, we are hiding 10 large ducks in the town of Harwich. So be prepared for those to be out and about. Then, I tied yet, on February 19th, which is Wednesday, we are having laser tag in the gym. February 20th is the Wabi Sabi Performance Group, which is a group of older adults who are dancers, and they invite people to participate. The ages range from 69 to 85, and they will put us all to shame. It's amazing. So, February 21st, Minute to Win It game. Then on February 22nd, from 8 to 10, we'll be doing a free pancake breakfast. After you fill up on your pancakes, if you've ever thought about trying the weight room, we're going to let you come in for 1 day free to see if you'd like to join the weight room. That's on the 22nd, 8 to 4. On the 25th, we're having an open mic night. This one I'm actually very excited about. We are partnering with the Harwich Children's Fund. They are working with us to do prom dress boutique. So if you have any prom dresses and you would like to drop them off, we will then have on the 27th, people can come in and shop, and those are all free. So it's for a great cause, and we want to support all of that. Then on February 28th, we will culminate with a birthday party, free ice cream, giveaways, the video booth will be up, and then on March 1st, I will be on vacation. I appreciate that, and I thank you. And all of this is available on the town's website, at the community center. And if I could just take one moment and say thank you to the staff who, when we said 25 events, Samantha makes all the flyers, Reagan makes the events happen, so. And lastly, I'm just going to say, I'm so grateful to be able to have had this job for 25 years. So thank you all, and
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you so much for all you do as well. Sure, go ahead.
There's no question that next time, if you let me go first, I'm going first. I just wanted to announce that office hours are back on track. February 5th, which is a Wednesday night, from 4 to 5:15 at the community center. Hopefully, Mr. McCaskill will join me. So we look forward to the public coming out and letting us know what they think and feel.
Thank you, Jeff. Anybody else for public comment and announcement? Okay. So we'll move on to item 5, which is Select Board reorganization. So I'll start the conversation on this because I brought it up.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
Do you mind putting this at the end of the agenda, given the presentations that we have and the fact that you're already running the meeting?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I can do that. So we'll move that to the end, and we can also go forward with presentations, which will be item B first. Oh, sorry, weekly briefing, Joe, Phase 3.
No worries, thank you, Madam Chair. So, Phase 3 sewer extension project in East Harwich continues. Presently, they are in the area of Elm Drive, and will be there through February 7th. And then after Elm Drive, they are going to be proceeding to Martha Eaton Court. As has been the case with Chestnut Lane, the north side of Elm Drive will be closed to through traffic. Again, that is through February 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll go to our presentation, the update provided by Karen Shanley, Finance Director, Search.
Good evening. I'm Karen Shanley, and I am the Finance Director Search Consultant. I'm here to present you with a status of the Finance Director Town Accountant Search. The position, the opening has been posted on the following sites: the town website, Mass Municipal Jobs, Massachusetts Government Finance Officers Association, and that's been on there for a long time, and we are updating it this week. It was an old posting from 23, actually. Massachusetts Collectors and Treasurers Association, Mass Municipal Auditors and Accountant Association, and that one we're in touch with. It hasn't been posted yet, but it will be. Government Finance Officers Association. Now, this is the national component of the Massachusetts, the MGFOA. So this will reach people on a national level. And Mr. Powers informed me that there was money available to do this posting, which is more expensive than the usual. It's also going to appear in the Cape Cod Chronicle next week. And the final thing is that there is going to be a LinkedIn account started in the administration, human resources, and that would be a place to reach a lot of people who aren't necessarily municipal employees. And that's another way, besides the website, the town website, for people who don't have access or don't know about municipal websites. Does anybody have any questions about the posting?
Go to board members. Michael, you have anything? Jeff? Don?
Count on me. Thank you, Madam Chair. Since I was the one who brought up that last subject, I'm still concerned that we're not reaching out far enough to people who might be controllers or finance VPs in smallish companies that want to do something different.
just go to the facile one. What about LinkedIn?
That LinkedIn account will be set up, and that will reach anybody who is on LinkedIn.
Just to
It will be
remind you,
advertised.
one of our previous finance directors came from the private sector, and she wanted a career change, and she was really good at the job.
I mean,
So-
that was, oh, excuse me.
So I don't want to sector out that. Me personally, I'm pretty sure the rest of the board feels this way too. We're at the point in time where I'm not real interested in just, if there's 3 candidates and the first one we interview is the first one in the door, I'm trying to look for a wide selection of choices in various flavors. So that's why I'm kind of hung up on where you're recruiting.
Okay. I mean, that was the purpose of setting up a LinkedIn account to connect with anybody who's on LinkedIn looking for a job.
Thank you.
Not so much on that realm, but I wonder if you are going to next talk about what you've seen for applicants thus far, not by name, but quantities and whatnot.
Currently, there are 3 applicants.
3 applicants?
Yes. The deadline for applications is March 1st. The applications will be reviewed as they're sent in. The qualified candidates will be interviewed in March. The preliminary interview team is Angelique McGibbon and me, and we plan to do those interviews in March. Candidates who don't meet the minimum qualifications, somebody just sends it in, they're not qualified, they'll be emailed, just thank you for your interest in the town of Harwich, but, you know, that type of thing, so that they do get a response. We're planning on having finalists to the select board by early April, in the hope that the process can be completed by May 5th, which is your town meeting. And it would be nice if at town meeting, the successful candidate could be introduced. So that's the plan. In terms of the select board interviews, they're public, as you know, televised. We had discussed last time, 2 weeks ago, that I will prepare the questions for the select board. And I just have a couple of questions on how you would like this process to go. I would suggest, because I'll always ask the same questions of every candidate, that if candidates haven't been interviewed, that they're sequestered someplace where they can't hear the questions ahead of time, and then they're welcome to stay for the interviews once they've been interviewed. And depending on how you want to do this, you can each ask questions, the prepared questions, or I'd be happy to do it so that you are free to take notes and, you know, not be worrying about the questions.
Does the board have a preference on that? Not that you have to say it tonight, but Don?
Thanks, Madam Chair. In all deference to you, it's a direct report to the Select Board, so I have a suspicion that each of us might have a question of our own that you may not have filtered through to us, but nonetheless, it's still our hire.
Oh, absolutely. And the one thing I would caution you is you want to make sure that you're asking everybody the same questions so that there isn't any appearance of preference for one candidate over another.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Anybody else have any comments? Okay.
And I will certainly get you the questions ahead of time so that you can add to them or anything else, anything you specifically want to ask everybody.
Of course, right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here tonight.
No other questions?
If I could, actually, Madam Chair, so I guess I'm stuck on the time frame, and I appreciate that we set out a schedule, but in the event that the schedule can be condensed, are we open to that process? So in other words, if we can, if you get, over the few weeks in February, you get some excellent candidates, do we have to wait until the second week in March, first week in March to interview them, or can we start bringing them in early? Perhaps they're a candidate somewhere else. We may not want to lose that individual as a potential candidate here. And then if the process goes smoothly, maybe the deadline, or the hiring deadline isn't the beginning of May, perhaps it's sometime in April. So I guess the question is, can we be flexible with that schedule as opposed to hard and true that deadline ends March 1, interviews begin sometime in March, our interview process sometime in April. Where are we with that?
I mean, it's entirely up to you, but most postings go for 30 days, and you may miss some good candidates if, they're going to apply the third week in February, and, you've made your decision by mid-February.
No, I understand that, but conversely, we could lose a candidate who has another job offer that's going to, their job, the town is going to offer them a job, or the private industry is going to offer them a job in the middle of February or the beginning of March, and we haven't done our interview yet. So that's my only point, is perhaps if we see on paper a candidate that looks to be a strong recommendation, then your interview happens before March, so that you can vet that person out and see if it's worthwhile, as opposed to, again, waiting till sometime in March and we lose them. So,
Thanks. Does anyone else feel similarly?
Well, I'll piggyback on that if I could. So then, Pete, great points. And how would we know if strong candidates are applying? Right? We would have to meet, or at least have communication with you every week, every 2 weeks, just so we're kept abreast of who's coming in from, for the applications.
What I do is I keep a spreadsheet so I can communicate with you weekly and let you know what candidates have come, how many candidates have come in, not who it is. And if somebody looks particularly strong, we can interview that person. And I'm a little cautious about, if that's what happens, then that's fine. But I don't know how the appearance would be if you interviewed somebody publicly, just one person, and then you interview other people later on. Just
I understand that. Maybe this board could agree to have weekly updates and take it week by week and see how it moves.
Don?
Yeah, the downside to what Jeff is saying is if you want to, especially if you're talking about sequestering people during the vetting process, I think the cat's out of the bag when the first one happens 3 weeks before and they can see it on YouTube. So somewhere or another, we got to figure out
Well,
Sorry, Pete, go ahead.
to not actually interview, I mean.
yeah, what I want to clarify is, my point is, if you find a resume that seems to be a standout, that you can conduct your interview with that individual before March.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, again, but what it sounded like in your presentation is you were waiting till March.
If there is somebody who is uniquely strong candidate, I will certainly bring it to your attention that we don't want to lose this person.
Right, so my preference is that you have your interview prior, or as soon as, available with you and the individual, so that if there is that candidate that we don't want to lose, then we could potentially take action as a board. And whatever other candidates are currently in the pile as well, perhaps we interview more than just that one that you're bringing forward as your recommendation, but we interview a few to see where we stand. I get your point of we don't want to lose someone who may apply at the 11th hour. However, back to my point, I don't want to lose somebody that applied at the beginning to some other entity.
One of the questions I usually ask people are why they're applying here to this position, and are they applying to other places, just to get a feel for that person.
Sure.
Because that can kind of give an indication of whether they've spread a wide net or whether they're specifically looking here.
Maybe what we could do is have, a weekly, like you said, circulate it, and if you don't have anything new, you can just send us an email saying, I have nothing new to report, so everybody feels updated.
Happy to do that.
Great, thank you. Thanks for coming tonight.
Oh, you're welcome. All right. Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So back on track for Cape Cod Commission's year in review by Christy Senatori. Hi, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. As many of you know, from time to time, I like to visit the select boards across the Cape to provide an update, kind of keep the lines of communication open, answer any questions that you might have. And so I'm beginning that kind of tour of the 15 towns, and I'm starting here in Harwich. So I've handed out our 2024 year in review, which is a summary of some of the work that we've completed last year at the Commission. It's not comprehensive, it doesn't cover everything, but it does provide some of the highlights. And certainly I can cover some of that tonight, and if you have questions after you had a chance to take a look at it, feel free to get back in touch with me. But I wanted to just take a moment to let you know that we had a staff retreat at the Commission back in the fall, and we actually came to the town of Harwich and had an opportunity to really take a look at some of the great work that's happening in the community as part of our staff retreat. And we visited the fire station, the collaboration between the Harwich Fire Association and the Conservation Trust to develop the housing and community space and make those connections to the Cold Brick Preserve. And we also looked at the Six Ponds DCPC area, really kind of identifying and showcasing that commitment to open space and preservation in the town. So we like to visit different towns across the Cape when we have our staff opportunities, and this was a great chance for us to take a look at some of the great work that's happening in Harwich. I also just wanted to take a moment and recognize all of the work that you and your staff teams are doing. A lot of local planning efforts that are underway in Harwich. We know you're working on your open space plan, your local comprehensive plan, hazard planning, and I know housing is a highlight of some of the work that you're prioritizing as well. And so we look forward to working with you on many of these local planning initiatives and providing technical assistance where it makes sense. So just some of the highlights of some of the work from last year. One of our big initiatives was our regional housing strategy. So we had been working on that plan for the better part of a year and released the draft of the regional housing strategy back in May. It contains a number of local zoning recommendations as well as some regional recommendations. And many of those are focused primarily around trying to identify new funding mechanisms and programs, zoning reforms and streamlined permitting, and potentially the development of new entities to support affordable housing and attainable housing. So we also developed a number of resources to support communities around the implementation, and some of these resources include multifamily design guidelines, as well as a series of model bylaws that can be implemented locally. We also developed housing profiles for each of the communities. I think I've shared these previously, and certainly we'll be looking to update those with new and the best available information as it becomes apparent to us. We are working on two of the recommendations within that plan and the implementation strategies, and those are looking at pre-approved plans and identifying where those may be possible to implement across the Cape in different communities, as well as looking at the potential development of a community housing trust and housing bank. So we're doing some research with outside consultants to identify a framework to develop those types of entities. So kind of moving on from housing, we've been working a lot in the area of water quality, and certainly fresh water has been at the forefront of many of these discussions, really trying to study some of the impacts to water quality in our 890 freshwater lakes and ponds. So we've developed a freshwater initiative. I anticipate that will be out for public comment within the month. And we've also developed a number of resources to support the protection and restoration of our freshwater lakes and ponds. These include pond buffer guidance documents, We've developed a water quality data portal so that we now have an interactive map-based online tool that allows users to really explore the different water quality data that we've been collecting, as well as other partners have been collecting. And we also have the Regional Pond Monitoring Program, which you're probably familiar with. We've recently secured funding to make sure that that monitoring continues past 2025. And obviously, wastewater has been something that's been a topic of concern amongst our communities for many years, and many of our communities are moving forward with that. But I wanted to just highlight the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund Management Board that subsidized nearly $65 million for water quality and wastewater projects in 8 towns just last year alone. And since its inception in 2018, it's awarded over $200 million in subsidies. So certainly a success in terms of making sure that our local projects can move forward. I did just want to recognize and thank Select Board Member Howell for his participation, and certainly making sure that that funding that's so critical, that our towns are so reliant on, has been secured. Certainly, Harwich is able to take advantage of some of those funding opportunities. The draft 2025 IUP is not yet available, but we do anticipate a large number of projects on that intended use plan as well. So moving on to transportation, and I feel like this has already been covered, so maybe I don't need to talk about Vision Zero. But we are in the midst of developing a Vision Zero action plan. So this is an initiative that's designed to improve road safety and really address some of the traffic fatalities that are happening across the region. So completing this action plan will actually make all of the 15 towns on the Cape eligible for Safe Streets and Roads for All implementation grants. So this will help leverage federal funding to implement some of these strategies. So we do have a Vision Zero advisory committee that's kind of overseeing the process, the development of the plan, and they provide feedback on a regular basis. A Harwich police lieutenant is actually on that Vision Zero advisory committee. And then moving on to climate and coastal resiliency, this continues to be one of the priority areas for the Commission, and we've completed the development of model bylaws and regulations to promote resiliency in the floodplain today and certainly into the future, and we'll be looking forward to collaborating with many of the towns on the implementation of these model bylaws. And we recently completed our low-lying roads project, and all 15 towns across the Cape did participate in that. Each of the towns has 2 or 3 conceptual plans for 2 or 3 vulnerable roadway segments in their communities. In Harwich, the solutions were developed for North Road and Bay Road at Route 28. So certainly we are available and looking forward to assisting towns in pursuing implementation funding or funding for the development of designs for additional roadways as well. And then following some of the resiliency efforts, kind of pivoting to the economic development efforts that we have been undertaking at the Commission. And last year we completed our comprehensive economic development strategy. We initiate a new development strategy every 5 years, and this strategy was completed in June, submitted to the Federal Economic Development Administration, and was approved. And so that makes the communities eligible now for additional federal funding through the Economic Development Administration. So we'll look forward to making sure that those funding opportunities are widely known. And we'll also be looking to advance many of the initiatives and priority actions within that economic development strategy over the course of the next several years. Last couple things, we have initiated an update to our regional policy plan, so taking a look broadly at the policies, the goals and objectives within that plan. Some of the areas of focus for this update include encouraging housing in the right places, promoting reuse and redevelopment where appropriate, making sure we continue to preserve natural areas, economic resiliency, climate action, and then of course incorporating infrastructure considerations. So we are engaging stakeholders through a series of focus groups, and we'll be going out more broadly to the public for feedback on that regional policy plan update. And I'm hoping that we will have a draft completed by late spring, early summer. I know many of you were able to attend our 10th annual One Cape Summit, which we held here in Harwich. We'll be looking to start our planning for next year's summit, so I'll certainly keep you updated there. And then lastly, I don't think she was able to make it tonight, but I wanted to just take a moment to recognize Jackie Edston. She's the commission member from Harwich. She's been on our board for quite some time now, and she's very invested and very engaged, and she's actually at a subcommittee hearing right now, so that's why she's not here tonight. But I did just want to thank her for all of her efforts. And I am happy to take questions, or if you have anything that you think of after tonight, feel free to get in touch.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll open it up to the board. Does anybody have any specific questions for Christie? Don?
This is a don't shoot the messenger portion of this. I appreciate everything you folks do at the commission, and you know that, especially in the wastewater stuff, have been trying to pitch for equitable distribution for all communities so that it wasn't just going to get skewed. Having said that, and again, this is a don't shoot the messenger thing. I know the ship has sailed largely, but Love Lane, the fact that nobody took it up, it was kind of a novel, this is kind of a novel use of the education exception, because I asked around and I looked at it. It hasn't really been litigated. Aside from that, they probably would have gotten an approval of some sort if they'd just gone through the regular regulatory reviews. What's happened is, and I think you need to hear this, is being a project that no one could comment on has had a cost, because other large projects are now kind of weighted down with the, you didn't let us talk about that, and this is too much now added to that. If people had had the opportunity to vent and potentially talk about anything that they saw that might have been able to be corrected, it would have been a far easier outcome for us dealing with 40Bs that came down the pike after that. So there was a ramification in the fact, I know that you were under pressure by the state because the state was taking the position that it wasn't subject to review because it had an exemption. But if all of the affordable housing carriers in the entirety of Cape Cod started alleging that they were going to put pods in each of their different developments that had an educational component, one could argue that everybody would be exempt from any kind of zoning review. I'm not sure where this ends, but it's something you need to hear and bring back to you, to your folks up there, that it has had a tangible outcome here on the successor projects. That doesn't need an answer. I just wanted you to know that.
Pete, you have any?
I'm good.
Jeff?
I'm good, thank you.
Michael?
I have no questions, but I will take your offer and reach out after I absorb all of your information. Thank you.
Great.
So these guys are letting you dump on me now.
I do have a question. I'm looking at this pre-approved housing plans to streamline permitting process. I'm just wondering, how do you see that working town by town? Because I know it says, you know, the plans are looking to adhere to local and building code, local codes, building codes. How do you see that process working?
Sure. So we are working with a number of consultants that have had successes in other areas streamlining permitting. And so one of the ways they do that is by the development of a number of plan sets that can be approved at the local level. And so it requires bringing in the building inspectors and the plumbing inspectors and those that may be more engaged in the details of those plans to make sure that those things are incorporated early on. And this is really targeted at multifamily housing that can maybe we can streamline the process where it makes sense. And so each community will have the opportunity, if they would like, to incorporate some of those pre-approved or pre-permitted types of plans into their suite of what they could make available to developers within their communities. And they really can be tailored to the individual town. So if there were certain types of housing designs or different number of units that communities wanted to make sure were incorporated, they could do that. It could really be, they could incorporate 2 different designs or multiple designs. So they're really structured to be tailored to the individual community. So we're looking forward to working with a number of pilot communities that want to see some of this streamlined permitting, and it can be tailored to the approximate location as well.
And would you be looking for whoever that developer was, or the town, or whatever, to come with the site plan? I mean, how would you look at the density of that?
Not necessarily, we don't need to know exact locations yet, but certainly we would have some identification of what might be pre-approvable. And then our consultants that we've worked with have identified areas where, yeah, this would make a lot of sense to do these types of designs. So there's already some structure built into that, and then we can work with the communities on what they might prefer.
Okay, great, thank you. There were a couple other things, but I'll look through this further, because some questions on broadband and transportation, et cetera,
Okay.
but there's a lot to digest, so.
Definitely.
Don?
Could I just follow up with one other thing? Because I'm really curious about this. You have a broader view of what's going on than we do at times. Have you seen, what kind of an impact have you seen with the stretch code versus building affordable housing? Because the cost per square foot is just skyrocketing because of that. And then I was stunned to hear that this isn't you, and I hope that everybody can delineate who the county different players are, but the Cape Light Compact, which is not part of the commission, really wasn't offering retrofitting either, for high-efficiency heat plants. So between the two things, and by not getting funding for the stretch code either, it just seems to me that even as the state's pushing for more affordable housing to be deployed everywhere in the Cape, I'm not sure that that's not having an impact, and it won't have an impact as it goes forward because of the cost of construction.
So there are probably like 6 questions in there, but I'm going to try to just answer that succinctly. In that the commission is working on design guidelines that incorporate net zero design considerations. So kind of identifying those opportunities where it makes sense to address some of the climate impacts, recognizing that some of the costs of development on the Cape are very challenging. So we wanted to make sure that we can have design guidelines that make sense for communities, but really, climate change is significantly impacting the region, and making sure that some climate considerations and net zero design buildings are incorporated into some of those structures.
Thanks.
Anybody else? No? Nothing? Thank you very much for coming
Thank you.
tonight, appreciate it. Okay, on to our consent agenda, and Don, you want to hold?
Yeah, I just need to clarify some comments. And I'll get it back to you this week.
And that was on the January 7th, 2025?
The joint meeting.
Right, yeah, okay. So can we get a motion on A?
Madam Chair, move to approve the following Select Board meeting minutes, December 30, 2024, and January 6, 2025, as written.
Second.
Any discussion? Jeff?
Yeah, I just have 2 corrections, one on each. The December 30th, 2024, on page 13, Mr. Matt Supfin's name is spelled incorrectly,
Oh, yeah, I saw that, yeah.
so we'd like to change it from, I think it was Matt Sutton, to Matt Supfin, which is spelled S-U-T-P, as in Peter, H-I-N. And then on January 6th, Mr. Charles Grushka on page 3, and I don't want anyone to ask me how I know where he lives and what his address is, but his address is actually 6 Teaberry Ave in Harwich. So I'd like to make those 2 corrections if I could.
Got that. Thank you.
It goes on
Motion's
Pete's
amended.
I
Okay.
accept that.
All in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
Madam Chair, vote to approve the committee appointment of Erica Strepik, sorry if I mispronounced that, Erica, as recommended by the interview committee to the Cultural Council, term to expire June 30, 2026.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And then C.
Just so everybody knows, because I went to the volunteer fair, and they're facing a real brain drain. Even with Erica, there's potential for more vacancies. So if anybody out there wants to be on the Cultural Council and feels they can contribute, we'd love you to come in for an interview.
Thank you, Don. And then item C,
Vote to approve the request from the fire chief for vacation buyback.
Second.
moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Just, Madam Chair, if I could, it looks like it's for the 2 weeks, and with that, that precludes the carryover of any time into next fiscal year.
All right. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. And now on to new business.
Presentations?
Oh, sorry, I totally jumped them. Committee presentations, I apologize. Elizabeth? You can, there, or if you want to sit, whatever you want to do.
Convention this weekend was a nightmare. So it's been refreshing to spur right into this for the nice people at home. I gave you my report, but if you want, I can read it into the record, or you can just ask questions about it, or about anything Christie said too.
No, I'll go, rather than make you read it all, I'll just go to board members to see if there are any questions on the information in the reports. Do you have any questions, Jeff?
Not right yet. Thank you.
Michael?
I have no questions. Good report. Thank you.
Don?
I appreciate everything you guys do, you know that.
Pete?
So along the same lines as what we were just talking about, obviously as you start out, you have quorum issues on occasion. Any candidates in the pipeline that you're aware of, or?
I have one woman that I really want to be on it, but she's even busier than I am, so she's reluctant. But every time I see her, I accost her and say, please. But no, if anybody out there wants to join, we have, it's a nice group. We get along well. There's no fighting. We like to disagree, but we don't usually. And that goes both for the Housing Committee, needs one, maybe two, and the Housing Authority, which is state-run for people who don't know. That needs a member too, and that's the member that would be appointed by you guys. Mm-hmm. So if anybody wants to be on the Housing Authority, please go to the board.
Thank you. Don?
Yeah, I just want to clarify something through you, Madam Chair. That one opening, is that supposed to be the tenant representative?
No, we have a tenant.
So in addition to that?
Right.
We don't appoint anybody, though. We can, in a joint meeting with the Housing Authority, we can come up with someone who is the purely elected official, and the majority of the combined boards can appoint somebody for the remainder of the term. There's a governor's appointee, there's a tenant's appointee, and then there's the ones that are elected. And if there's somebody who didn't run, leaving a vacancy, or somebody who left during their term, then we can, but it's not like, it doesn't go through the interview committee. It goes through a joint meeting of the Housing Authority and the Select Board.
Art, help me out here. Isn't our fifth one appointed?
But you can't talk from there, right? You have to come up to the...
I'm sorry.
That's it.
We don't appoint anyone.
No.
By the way, I'm Elizabeth Harder, Chair of the Harwich Housing Committee in Harwich.
Oh, you didn't say that.
Housing
No,
Authority.
say that.
Sorry, people. Come sit and help me out.
As far as I know,
Who are you?
Art
Okay,
Bowden,
thank you.
Harwich. As far as I know, that opening position is an elected position.
Right, which Emily mentioned earlier tonight. Yep.
So Emily mentioned.
Oh, it is the fifth one.
Nothing that we would appoint.
As far as I know.
I said
but I'm
correct.
not the last word.
Yeah.
And that's the process. We all get
it would be
together
elected.
and
I thought there were only
interview
two
people and
elected.
appoint them jointly.
Right. So,
I thought there were only two elected.
Thank you, Donna.
I said correct.
any other questions for Elizabeth? Or? Yep.
The Housing Committee is good. All the things that Christie was telling you about, I could have bylaws ready for town meeting discussion, except you have to approve the housing production plan.
Right, which is going to
Otherwise,
be
you're going to be a year behind.
next week.
That's for Housing Committee. And for Housing Authority, the Housing Authority had gotten money from CPC to run a rental assistance program. Mm-hmm. We are helping 9 families currently. When that money runs out, it's been worked out pretty darn well that when the 9 families move on, that will be the end of our money from Harwich. There might be a little left to return to the CPC. But then that program won't be continuing because the Affordable Housing Trust is doing one that has case management.
Right.
So that's much better.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's going to be a good program. They already have some applicants. Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate all your work, and thank you for your report and all your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, one more thing. Thank you, Pete, for finding out how to get minutes on, and I'm working on getting the minutes put on the
Just a
website.
conduit, just a conduit. I couldn't tell you how to do it.
Okay, now we'll go on to new business.
Madam Chair, vote to approve the following 2025 annual renewal of mooring servicing agent permits. Allen Harbor Marine Services, servicing Allen Harbor Mooring Field. Lower Cape Marine Services, servicing Herring River, Pleasant Bay, and Round Cove Mooring Fields. And Harwich Port Boatyard, servicing Witchmere Inner and Outer Harbor Mooring Fields.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Don?
Yeah, this is a field I'm not as conversant as I should be, but I'm just questioning. Last year, we had a mooring servicing agent come in, and it was significantly higher than the previous year. Has that been addressed here?
Yeah, that'd be great if you come up.
Challenge my speaking skills and go to the podium. Stand up here. So I'll get to that. First of all, I'd like to just thank you all for being here and just, serving the community in a job that probably doesn't always feel all that thankful. So thank you all for being here.
And just state your name for the record.
Oh, Bill Neeser, and I'm the Deputy Harbor Master, going in for John, who is moving on from us.
Right.
So, yes, I can answer those questions. I don't know if you want to do it as a specific one-by-one question, or...
Just the one question.
One question.
That one question was the previous mooring servicing agent.
Yes.
Apparently didn't get his offer in soon enough, and then the person who was awarded was way more expensive. I just want to make sure that that's been addressed.
I can speak to that. Well, first of all, as you all know, he didn't get the old servicing agent just didn't get it in on time. As far as the prices that increase, we did do a study of generally all the prices all around here of the mooring servicing agents, and they were very much in line with all of the other mooring servicing agents. They had a rocky start. I will say that it was hard, just given the conditions, trying to get things going. And I believe that now they have been in touch with the customers a little more. I've been hearing a lot of comments now, a lot of good comments. So even though they are more, they are very much in line with what is the normal going rate now.
The other guy never showed back up again, or?
Excuse me?
The previous vendor didn't?
The previous vendor came and tried to get back in somehow, but no, he hasn't.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
So just for clarity for myself and for those that have a better understanding, so last year was the 3-year licensing agreement.
Correct.
This is just the renewal of the annual permit.
That's right.
So the folks who were here last year, that's where the issue occurred, was last year.
Yes.
I believe the individual in question still services some of the moorings, or not at all?
We have allowed the private moorings to be the people that would like to keep that person on for the private.
For the
We
private,
have
okay.
the public mooring fields, as you know, that are all.
Gotcha.
We have some very tight mooring fields.
Okay.
And then we have private moorings we have regulations on what you need to do to be able to get a private mooring. So we have decided that the people with those private moorings are allowed to use him or another person that we approve of.
Okay.
That we make sure that they have worked on moorings in the past and know our regulations and know what they have to do as far as reporting the condition of the moorings.
The message is that things are calmed down.
Things are getting very much. I had a call the other day from somebody that said, it was a rocky start, but now he feels that he's got a good rapport and he was very happy. We were fielding a lot of dissatisfied calls at first, but a lot of them, once they have gotten a chance to speak with the new mooring servicing agent and things have smoothed out, I anticipate a much smoother year this year. I think things are going to go very well. I think they're actually doing a good job, so, with the conditions presented to them.
Great, thanks. Did I get a second on that?
I did.
Second it?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I tried to get John to come back tonight, but, because he was here last week, and I
Or in
just,
general.
just
Yeah.
what?
Or in general.
Yeah.
May I take a moment to address John? This is totally unscripted, but I was thinking over there, you know,
He might reach back out to you.
Oh, boy. He already has. But, you know, I worked with John in Chatham for a couple of years, too, and I've worked with him here, so I worked with him basically, I think, around 12 years. It's been a pleasure, a privilege. I've learned a lot. I often look back and think I've seen pictures of John in, like, the late 80s in his Coast Guard dress whites, and pictures of me as a commercial fisherman with my gear and blood all over me. And I think it's just, it's kind of amazing if you look at us then and see how well we work together now, because I think we just complemented each other in ways. I have nothing but, I'm just so thankful for having John there. And yeah, big shoes to fill. So.
Well, we're glad you're here as well, and we're sorry to see John go. And John did a lot of wonderful things for the town, and especially saved us a lot of money with his grants that he went out for multiple times. But the $2 million comes to mind on Saquatucket Harbor, and he's just a fantastic person. So sorry to see him go, but I'm happy. I think we're all happy for him to be able to enjoy his family and his retirement. So we'll miss him.
Absolutely, yes. He worked very, very hard at the job.
Very hard.
So, but we still have a very good team there that
Sure do.
works very well together, and yeah, I anticipate things to go smoothly.
Great.
Once again, thank you all.
Thank you, and thanks for being here tonight.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I did say all in favor.
Yeah, we're good.
All of you.
Okay. Item B, the film agreement. I'm gonna
Item
give
B
this-
states review and approve the film agreement between the town of Harwich and Magilla Entertainment.
Madam Chair, actually,
Magilla.
the individual was there.
Oh, are they on?
They don't appear to be on there presently.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on this? or-
There's no attachment. It says attachment A, and it's a blank piece of paper.
Yeah,
So there's nothing for me to even look at.
they don't have any specific identified locations yet, I believe? 'cause I
Correct.
asked that
I'd
question as
recommend that
well.
you table.
Yeah, if I could further, I think then, I'd like to get a description of said film, and then the rest of it, until they produce that the week ahead of time, I have no interest in bringing this back.
I don't disagree. Does anybody else have any issue? Cindy, do you have anything to add?
We need to pay our heat bill. We need to pay the heating bill.
I know.
Good evening, Cindy Williams, Executive Director of the Harwich Chamber. Actually, I know nothing about this. We weren't contacted at all by them, like we were with the other film. So I'm not even sure who they are. I did Google it, because I was curious. And all I could find was that they do reality shows. So,
Oh, okay, so you didn't have any, okay.
no contact whatsoever,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Well, that's fine. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to put
Absolutely.
you on the spot.
And Michael's
No,
right.
that's fine.
But I do think we need a little bit more information.
Correct. Staff reached out to the applicant, asked them for more information, advised them to be present. They were going to be on the remote access. They appeared there earlier. So on behalf of staff, I'd recommend that you table.
Yeah, thank you.
Madam Chair, I move to approve a temporary closure for Cape Sea Grill, 31 C Street, closing February 1, 2025 through March 11, 2025.
Second.
For construction, cleaning, painting, and upkeep. Sorry. Everybody's so excited to
I'll
second
second the
that
full
one.
motion.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay?
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. 5-0.
Wasn't me. I want the second. I didn't get the first second.
All right.
Item D states discussion and possible vote to revise the Tourism Destination Marketing District, TMD, from the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce.
Great.
So good evening again, Cindy Williams, Executive Director of the Harwich Chamber. I am very excited to have Paul from the Cape Cod Chamber back with us to discuss this. It's been a lot of work, but looks like we're getting closer. It's going to be a wonderful opportunity to compete with our other outside of the state locations that are developing these destination districts. So without anything else from me, I'll let you take it over.
Thank you, Cindy. For the record, my name is Paul Nedzwicki. I'm the CEO of the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce. We were here almost exactly a year ago to discuss the tourism destination marketing district, which was enabled by the Commonwealth 3.5 years ago now. Boston and Cambridge are the only ones that have formed a district to date. We've got other districts out there that are close. Plymouth is one of them, north of Boston, Metro West. When we discussed it last year, we had contemplated doing this Cape-wide. And in order to be a qualifying hotel, we set the floor at 14 rooms, which qualified over 160 hotels on the Cape. So as that was sort of conceived and constructed, it would have been the largest district in the country by number of rooms and by square mileage geography. So it proved to be a challenging effort to get 160 hotels in 15 towns on the same page about this without there being changes on boards and then significant changes in ownership and management around the Cape. So we've discussed the TDMD with other districts out of the state, Portland, Maine, Providence. Rhode Island is one of the newer ones that was conceived in Newport, Rhode Island is actually the oldest one in the country. Their recommendation was to focus on hotels that had similar interests. So what we did is we went back and we looked at and we raised the room level really from 14 to 85 rooms. So there are 35 qualifying hotels around the Cape at 35. And what we've decided to do is create the districts on a town-by-town basis because those 35 hotels are only in 9 of the towns. And we've got to be able to demonstrate a return on investment. So I believe you have the district plan that's been revised in your package. The only thing different from a year ago is that room limit. It's been raised to 85. So that means in the town of Harwich, you only have one hotel that's impacted by that, and that would be the Fawcett Resort. So we're here to sort of discuss the changes and sort of reintroduce the concept. Fawcett is in favor of the TDMD. And here tonight is Gary Thulander, who's the area managing director of the Fawcett Resort. Gary may be new to Fawcett, but he's certainly not new to the Cape. I think it would be great if Gary could come up and maybe introduce himself a little bit.
I'll leave.
So with the petition signed, what we'll do is we'll hand it over to the town manager, and it's a requirement that there be a public hearing. So there will be a notice requirement back to Fawcett, a posting requirement. Then we'll be able to have a subsequent meeting where there's a public hearing and then a final vote by the town. And again, the town would be creating the district, and the reason that we need the town vote is because this would be an additional 1.5% charge on people that are staying at Fawcett, and that would be collected through the Department of Revenue and then come back to the Regional Tourism Council. So that's why we need the town vote. So with that, I think I'd like to introduce Gary Thulander.
Thank you, Paul. My name is Gary Thulander. I'm the area managing director of Oquasit. Also, I oversee the Red Jacket collection down in Yarmouth also. So I have 6 hotels and about 600 hotel rooms on the Cape. I used to run Chatham Bars Inn for the last 6 years and moved over to Oquasit last April. So very excited being in the town of Harwich. And in endorsing the program here, I endorsed it when I was at Chatham Bars Inn. I think it's really important to making sure that we have the marketing funds to support our destination. If you really compare our marketing funds to other locations around the country, we are on the very much lower side. And I think this is going to definitely help us, not only our individual resorts here, but collectively on the Cape and Islands for sure. And Paul's done a very nice job of communicating, I think, the effect to all the 15 towns, and I hope it does spread to all 15 eventually here and other resorts. I think they'll see the benefit coming up.
And what is your timeline on having a public hearing? And
so we would submit the petition to the town, which we'll do this week, and then there's a I think there's a week to mail the notice back to Wauquasit. I believe there's a 2-week period where it has to be posted for 2 weeks. Then the public hearing, I think, happens 2 weeks after the close of the post. It could happen that quickly, but I think it has to happen within 60 days of the close. So I think the earliest we could look at a public hearing would be March 4th.
Okay. Joe, do you have any comments to offer? Just ask.
This hasn't been reviewed by staff or legal. The request was to make the presentation to you tonight, so we're hearing this for the first time as you are. So that's as far as I could go at this point.
Okay, thank you. Board members, anybody want to have any questions or anything to say?
Go ahead.
No, I don't. Thank you both for being here and bringing this to us.
Michael?
Paul, good to see you again. See you. Gary, good to see you. What are you looking for? What's the action tonight?
This is just informational.
Just
tonight.
informational?
Yeah, this is just informational to let you know that this process is going to start. So it's to submit the petition, to be public notice, posting requirement, and ultimately a public hearing.
Public hearing.
So just for informational purposes.
And remind me, last time we talked about this, there was, we actually got a lot more emails than we got tonight. So we have one email tonight supporting this from the managing partner at the managing director, Pelham House.
Yes.
Who I'm not sure would be even affected by this, but he took the time to write a letter of support.
Yeah.
Last time I remember about a 50-50 split. Can you remind me what the negative side to this and why people were against it last time?
Yeah, I don't think there is a negative side, but there were people that were against it. And what when we talked to the hotels, those hotels that are really strictly seasonal did not see a benefit because a lot of the marketing funds will be used to extend shoulder seasons. Like, we're not looking to bring more people here in July and August. But, all the infrastructure we have on the Cape, whether it's wastewater transportation, it's really built for peak flow capacity. So it's underutilized in those shoulder seasons. So I think the easiest ways for towns to get economic development and increase commercial tax base is to amplify that. That's exactly what this does. And some of those smaller seasonal hotels, we discussed it, but the total amount raised at 160 rooms, when we go to 35, we're still raising 2/3 of what that total amount was. So the smaller hotels really would have benefited more by being it. But, we listened to them, and that's part of why we raised that room level, to get hotels that had similar interests and had group space and things that we were going to market that some of the smaller hotels didn't.
Gotcha.
So I think once they see the benefit, we'll have another Cape-wide discussion, but there's a sense of urgency in that we are facing increased competition across the country, certainly in the greater New England and New York area, but also increasingly in the state. So to get some of these districts started now, to demonstrate their effectiveness and then to expand it, really seemed to be a better strategy.
Thank you. One more, if I may. Hypothetically, if we get a new 100-plus room hotel in the town, they would be welcome to join?
Yes.
Okay. That's all. Thank you. Thank you, Barry.
John?
Gary, thanks for coming.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do want to say that Wauquasit in the past did not have a strategy of staying open year-round, so it's a really important move forward as far as I'm concerned, especially in competition to your former employer. So it's the kind of thing I'd like to be able to support because it means something to the town of Harwich to move into the shoulder seasons in the winter.
Yeah, it's something I mentioned before. China Bars Inn, when I was there, we're expanding our market share into 12 months of the year. As you know, Wauquasit's model was closing for, I don't know, was it 4 or 5 months, 4 months of the year and operating for 8. Our goal is to be year-round resort. And, this process is going to hopefully help us build some of that business in our shoulder seasons to increase our revenues, increase employment, increases taxes, all that kind of thing. That would be good for everybody. Be win-win.
More days spent at Wauquasit. Who doesn't want that?
We would definitely invite that.
Pete? Oh, sorry, Joe.
Defer to board members.
No, it probably comes as no surprise to the board that I'm not so inclined to support this. And not that you're looking for a vote tonight because this is informational, but To be quite honest with you, I think, in looking at, I think the number was roughly $50,000 that this would generate, something in that regard. And a decent portion of that is going to go to overhead and staffing. So, you know, what I think about is the town of Harwich will have one entity at this point as part of this group, and it says the majority of the membership of the committee shall be lodging business owners paying into the TDMD. So again, that would be at best one for Harwich that's part of this membership committee that's deciding where the monies are being spent. You also mentioned about the infrastructure being designed and built for max capacity as we see in the peak season. And as we know sitting here, that's not factual in Harwich because we have deficient roadways all over town that we've just outlined. So that brings concern to increase road traffic throughout the year. You know, again, but when I see some of the items that the program may include, such as folks attending conventions and marketing programs, funds to support incentives, hosting fees, and other offsetting costs associated with securing strategic industry events, you know, costs associated with electric vehicle charging and improvements to cell service for groups and conventions, attendance at trade shows, conferences, professional industry partners, lobbying and advocacy activities, implementation of direct incentives or subsidies to stimulate business activity to assess lodging, use of data programs to generate data. Confused me, but I understand. Partnership with the Chamber to support events and programming to drive additional room nights. Sales and marketing portion of the budget that may be used for staffing costs. Programs focused on capital investment, development initiatives, and tourism, generating facilities to enhance quality and appeal. It said $50,000. That's quite a bit that the program hopes to achieve for $50,000 nut. So I personally see it as if businesses, if the lodging industry wants to increase their tourism, increase their tourism through marketing, they can do that. It doesn't require an assessment. It doesn't require red tape through the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to tax the folks who are going to stay there, send it to the Commonwealth, and then back to the Chamber to disperse. I'll stop because I don't need to continue. I'm not saying the concept is bad. I just don't understand why we're putting on additional sales tax on to the folks who want to come to town and stay here. But again, probably no surprise to the four of you.
Joe.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to the presenters. And for the record, this was not rehearsed. Again, I was prepared to speak before the board member who just spoke.
Madam Chair, and only so he doesn't lose his thought, Paul did raise his hand, I think, to respond to Pete.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see
it
that.
before Joe starts.
The plan has to detail anything that we could possibly spend money on. Obviously, with limited resources, we wouldn't be able to do all those things. All the things that you mentioned are things that the Chamber does currently, part of the Regional Tourism Council. And I think what this is a request by a business in your town to be able to generate more income to reinvest in its business. And I mean, you can be in favor of that or not, but that's really what it is. It's not public money at all. You know, it actually would relieve some of the burden potentially on sort of public funds, I think, the way that it's used. And we work very closely with the Harwich Chamber, who would be a partner in some of this as well. So I hear the concerns, but this is simply a business asking for you to create a district so it can raise additional money to bring, so that it can reinvest it in its business.
Which, if I just could respond, I don't disagree. However, I don't believe that requires a tax to be put forth on the consumer. The business entity has that right and ability anytime they want to invest more money into marketing and tourism, marketing and tourism ventures, I guess, you know, as far as whatever form they want that to be.
Yeah.
So.
And this is a way to collect the resources so that we can have a bigger impact than individual businesses going about it on their own. But it is a reinvestment in a local business.
Thank you. Joe?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I remember the history and the process correctly, the Cape Cod Chamber presented to the Cape and Islands Managers and Administrators Association what will be 2 years in June. When this matter came before the Select Board, the previously constituted Select Board, the understanding is that the Chamber was going to go to several communities. I believe the first community that voted this was the town of Harwich. But when the presentation was made to managers and administrators, we were told that there was going to be a regional entity. This doesn't read like a regional entity. It reads like the town of Harwich with one hotel as the entity. I just wanted to validate that if I could. I do have some more comments and questions.
Yeah, it's 9 communities that are impacted now and not 15. Even at 15, Mashpee was still sort of absent from the process, not having the hotels. So it will be 9 individual districts that will be tied together for efficiency purposes administratively. But the money raised has to be reinvested in the hotel that's paying the fee. We have to demonstrate a return on investment, and the district has to be reapproved every 5 years. So, and the first town to vote it was Orleans, actually.
Joe?
I think the point I want to bear is that the presentation that led this town to approve it was that there was a concept of multiple towns being in a regional event. What I'm hearing tonight is that there are 9 individual prospective districts, correct? I mean, there is a change.
That's why we're here tonight.
I don't believe, I'm sorry, I apologize. I haven't heard that explanation of the change.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I started with that.
Yes, but, I mean, the earlier comment about
85
what the
rooms,
opposition was, managers and administrators, as a group, did not support this. We did not oppose this coming before each of our towns, but to the previous speaker, what we don't know is, yes, there's a requirement for this town to have a hearing to have a tax. So my concern is people misunderstand, as we do the budget, that tax that's being created is a pass-through. It's not a tax levied by the Select Board to any entities out there, but it's also not a tax that we're enjoying the benefit of, as we are, with the present hotel, motel, and meals tax for our special purpose stabilization fund. So I do think it's important to have these facts brought up. Additionally, the language still reads incorrectly. The town of Harwich is not governed by a town council, which is what referenced in here. That's a legislative assembly, much like the town of Barnstable, as I know you know. It's the select board, so the document needs to be updated in that regard. And as we go forward, because I've heard that the town manager, but that would be the town administrator presumably, would have to cause a hearing to be heard. I think it's important to at least bear out there that this is not what was presented when the board first adopted it. That's not necessarily a kill move, but I think there has to be greater transparency on this. Because as we're talking about our budget, there will be a hearing in the town of Harwich on a rooms tax for tourism. I just want to make sure there's separation between those two, because I don't want to have this board or administration criticize during our budget process that we're raising more taxes.
Understood.
And there still is an unknown, because to my knowledge, no one has executed this yet in the Commonwealth? Or has the Department of Revenue started
Boston
distributing?
and Cambridge have been collecting on the district.
Thank you, I appreciate the distinction. There's no open town meeting or representative town meeting other than the capital city and the second largest city in the Commonwealth, that are going through this with the Department of Revenue. So there is a potential concern, as was expressed before. It may not be debilitating or killing, but we don't know how that's going to work for our treasurer collection department and other taxes that are collected. I think it can be explained, but I think it's important for the board to know all of that. There were objections in the past. Doesn't sound like what's being asked tonight, but I think we need to bear out, because again, the request for staff was to have this on the agenda so that the board could consider this. So to be clear, the staff has not evaluated this in any way, shape, or form, nor has it passed muster with legal, because I do believe there was a request for the organizations to get the benefit of your legal review.
We did submit the petition for legal review, and I believe it was approved, but I will check on that. But we submitted the new petition for approval before we came this evening. So, but I'd be happy to check on that.
Thank you. Dawn?
I don't run a motel or a hotel, so but I do have considerable experience with the government, and I can be more jaded than my colleague over here at times. I'm just warning you that I have never seen something that was laid hands on in Boston where it retained 100% of its equity by the time it got to here. Every other tax I've seen them do, as a matter of fact, the other rooms taxes that Joe has mentioned, except for the clean waters stuff, there's a wheelbarrow that goes up to Beacon Hill that is half full by the time it comes back. So I just warned you that this in concept may look great, but I'm not too sure how long it's going to take for them to figure out that they have administrative overhead in taking it and reallocating it back. That's my warning.
Yeah, and I did notice that the council reference, but the petition doesn't say that, it says Town of Harwich, so. So if you would just follow up on your end and then.
Happy to.
Great.
Madam Chair, just one more. I think to Don's points about tax in Boston and not getting it all back, I'm sure that's been vetted through Boston and Cambridge, so it seems like a pretty easy.
Yeah, the Department of Revenue it's a pass-through. It's actually the only way that we can get state funding that comes back to the region at 100% of what was what was sort of levied.
Okay. And then, just for clarity's sake, there's one thing for him to check on, but is it the intention of the board, because I think we have to give direction to the town administrator to facilitate a public hearing so we can get to the next level on this? We're not bringing it back to get to that point. Are we agreeing now that we will at least hold a public hearing? Or should we agree?
Well, I'll look to Joe to give feedback on what you would need to do on your end.
Completely unknown at this point, to be frank. You know, I mean, I'm familiar with the program. As I've stated, you know, there was I think it's fair to say there was doubt amongst managers and administrators on the Cape for a lot of the reasons why the members here have said for each town. There's a lot to digest here, and if the board were to direct me to move forward on the hearing, we could do that. I don't know how the hearing is promulgated, and I don't know who's answering the questions at the hearing.
And with that said, if I can continue, what's a fair amount of time to get to this back to the board to say that we're going to have it? I don't want it to get lost, and I think that obviously it will be, we should hear from the public, we should have a public hearing. Town administrator should be comfortable getting to a public hearing. That I understand. What is a reasonable amount of time to get this back to the board to have a date set for a public hearing? I'm not saying we should do it March 4th, because that's the soonest we can do it.
Right.
But what is a realistic date to get this back so that we can understand when we can have a public hearing?
So, if I may, through you, the document that the board has in their packet, that's dated September 2024, the district plan. You know, I think it needs to be updated in certain instances, but certainly with the public hearing, and there's a duration that it began January 1st. Is that date still, on page 2, item number 3, duration, the TMD will have a 5-year life beginning January 1st, 2025.
Yeah,
so would you have to update this document?
We would have to update that to July 1st, sure.
Okay. So, I mean, I think for the organization to go through their document, then present it, we can share it with staff, including finance and legal, and then have a better sense of when it can come back.
Okay. So are you thinking a couple weeks to bring it back?
What's your turnaround on the document itself?
We'll have it to you this week.
Yep. And so then we'll work through legal and finance.
Okay.
Mid to late February, perhaps?
Yeah, and I only ask because I do agree also with Donna, the town administrator, about separation between budgeting and town meeting when we start talking about taxes. And then just to be clear on the taxes, I stay at the Wauquasit, I pay an additional 1.5%, and then the state sends it all back to the...
That's correct.
And so, nothing to anybody else in town.
Absolutely not.
Only if you stay at the Wauquasit, you pay an additional 1.5%.
One business in town.
Right, so, and that is each person's decision on whether or not they want to pay them an extra 1.5%.
And then in terms of the public hearing, obviously, you would be present to
We would
answer.
be present, we would offer to make a full presentation, however you'd like to structure that public hearing.
Okay, great. All right, so we'll,
Just one, has any other town on the Cape done this yet?
Yeah,
Are there any other colleagues I can reach out to?
You can talk to the town of Yarmouth. I mean, we've talked to Yarmouth and the town of Bourne. All three of those seem, ready to go.
Have they done the hearing part yet?
No. No.
okay, well, we'll work to get it back here in the next couple of weeks. We'll be in touch, and then you'll send your document over and get that follow-up on the legal question.
Absolutely.
Great.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very
everyone.
much.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Now we're on the discussion on the vote for one of the dates listed here in terms of our budget meeting, our all-day fun Saturday.
Good lunch. Madam Chair, if I could start, March 1st or March 8th are the only two that I could even consider.
Same.
Unless it's going to be remote.
Same, Michael.
So then I'll follow up on that, and I don't know that I can do either one of those.
And there's the loyal opposition here, where I'm not sure what value there is having them on either of the March dates. But if the purpose is to have
To have it earlier.
department heads to advocate for anything, other than just go through FinCom and us.
I know.
So if I could just, perhaps this helps the board with, all related dates to the budget process. Excuse me. So I've said that on February 3rd, I'm going to be delivering a preliminary budget message and preliminary figures that is meant to, really start the discussion in earnest, and that the finance director and his team are planning on having an abundance of information that follows that available on February 10th, because I know, Madam Chair, we had talked about the potential for a joint meeting sometime in February with the Finance Committee. If the February 10th date still works for all the parties, maybe the two boards could discuss next steps as far as a more in-depth discussion by department heads. Perhaps it is remote in some circumstances. Maybe that will help you come to a greater conclusion. My understanding is that in years past, we've usually done the first Saturday in March, with the second Saturday in March as a fallback. So we know that those don't work for all the members. So maybe perhaps we, through the chair, reach out to FinCom for the joint meeting on the February 10th and go from there.
Yeah, well, could we, on that note, when the mention of department heads, could we have the larger department heads available at that time? Or,
I think you could. My sense is that you're interested in getting comprehensive information from me on what I will present to you as a budget and what we have for all the revenue for the sources and uses. What I'm expecting the finance to be able to get to you on February 10th is a greater breakdown of that, which would be in advance of the March hearing.
Right.
I will warn you that presently that is munis reports, which are a special creation under heaven, and it's not the easiest thing to read.
right?
But having that joint discussion between the Select Board and the Finance Committee on February 10th should help you decide your next steps and conversations. You may not be able to have the bigger departments come in on the 10th, because you may not feel you have all the information, but you could do it at future meetings or separate meetings.
Well, and then the follow-up to that is if we were to have that discussion on the 10th, then I think the 17th is a holiday, right? So the next meeting would be the 18th, and isn't that February vacation?
I could do it on Valentine's Day. No. I'm gone February for the most part, other than remote, normal.
Other than
normal
Valentine's
meeting.
Day.
And I'll be available for Joe's budget presentation. If I could just, speaking from someone that's done this now for the last maybe 8 years, I don't see the reason in even having most of the departments in, because they submit a budget, the budget gets keyed in, and there's no asks. So really it comes down to the budgets where things have been cut for them to make a case, or anyone that wants an enhancement of services. And I see no reason we can't do that as part of the budget discussion at a regular meeting when we're talking about and dissecting budgets. I'm not saying I didn't get a lot out of the Saturday meetings, but I really didn't get a lot out of the Saturday meetings. A halfway decent lunch. But a lot of times it was just department heads pitching what they've already sold us. And I don't see the point.
Well, and so,
I'm good going to nighttime.
yeah,
Who's going to cover this?
go ahead, Don.
It was better than okay, the lunch.
Said halfway.
Yeah, halfway. All I can say is I'll see your 8 and raise you 5. I really, it depends on what you want to get out of this thing, because if you're going to be doing this in March, we're back where we were trapped before. Well, that was not the history of this. It used to be held in early February so that there was time to jiggle the budget around. And if you're starting to get to the point where I think you're going to get to, what Michael just said is probably true. You really have to cut to the chase, because let's face it, I work backwards. You got the town meeting, you have when the warrant has to be put in to be published and printed. Then you've got prior steps to get to that point. If you're holding it in the middle of March, there's almost no possibility that anything's changing, because you're up against too many deadlines then. So there's no real value to holding it other than to show people we can sit down for about 5 hours and listen.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't see any reason why we can't, add it to a regular select board meeting if we have any reason that we need department heads in. Joe?
I think the only other consideration, however, was trying to get information quickly to your colleagues, your counterparts in the finance committee.
Well, I was just going to say,
So-
we've communicated quite frequently with FinCom, and we're going to have another meeting with them on the 10th. So,
So that is a certainty.
yeah, well,
Great,
they're
thank you.
available, right? Yep,
Perfect.
Yes.
Yep.
yep.
We certainly have time to post.
Yeah, because, I mean, we reached out because I said to Peter, we would look at the information and then we would have another meeting, and Jeff reached out as liaison, and they're available on the 10th, so.
Excellent.
So I think we're good. And then if there's any questions after that, or there's a need to have a discussion with any particular department, I mean, to Michael's point, it's really only the larger ones that we've really had to hear from, and that was with specifics. We've already had their information by that point. So I'm fine with that, and I'm fine with doing it in the evening if we needed to. So I think it's just hard to corral everybody into one date. So if we're good with that, then I think we proceed that way.
Michael will take his sandwich to go.
No potato chips.
We'll get him a chocolate heart for Valentine's Day. All right, so moving on. So last thing is select board reorg. As I said, I have been doing this for a year. I won't be running again. I think it's time for a change. So I'll just put it out there, whatever way this board wants to do it. We could do it so that Jeff goes into the chair as he's currently vice chair. I could step back and be vice chair, or we could completely reorganize. Whatever way you guys want to do it, just you need to do it. So I threw it out there.
So if you want, I'll start. It's normally Dawn, so I'm trying to take his thunder tonight. But are you stepping down? Is that what you're doing? So you're stepping down.
I'll step down, and I can stay on till the end of the month, whatever way you want to proceed, or I can step down as of next week. Doesn't matter.
Because my only sense is I'm not prepared to have the conversation and really wanted to see where you were going. Because when you signed on to be chair, you signed on to be chair for a year, not the half a year, but the half a year plus this year. So I never anticipated a reorganization. and I'm not prepared to even act on this tonight, nor will I just won't participate. And there is a mechanism, if you want to step down, the vice chair steps into the chair's seat in the absence of a chair. So as far as I'm concerned, the board is covered for the time being, and by saying the vice chair would step into the chair's seat, I'm not meaning permanently, because I think it is up to the board to decide if it wants to fully reorganize. And I would like to hear if there's people that are interested in being chair and why, and what they plan on doing and what they plan on changing, and having healthy debate on it, and not tonight.
Well, I'm stepping down then as chair, as of tonight. So, Don?
And this actually isn't a thunder thought. Just to add to what Michael was saying, I've pondered this for a long time. Putting this, when we finally do it, it's more than just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. It should not be at the front end of the agenda whenever we do it.
I didn't put it there, just so you...
I got it, but I'm just saying that it's unfair to the town, unfair to the board, and unfair to the person that you hand them a gavel about 5 minutes into a meeting and say, okay, you just got elected. So it really always used to be at the end of a meeting so that...
I agree, Dawn. I actually thought the same thing when I saw it on the agenda, to be perfectly honest with you, because it doesn't make sense to start it off with the reorg, with the chair starting the meeting and then flipping it over. So
I'm looking for continuity is my
point. I don't
point.
disagree with you at all, so.
But I would support what Michael's saying, is just maybe have Jeff sit in next meeting and then make sure that it's on an agenda in a meeting or two so that we can actually ponder whether we're going to do this as a permanent reorganization.
Yep, that's fine. Whatever way you want to do it. That's why I opened the conversation that way. Pete, do you have anything?
No, that sounds good.
Thank you. Okay, so town administrator report.
I don't have anything to say.
Jeff, you have no choice.
Madam Chair, if I may, before we go to the town administrator, I missed it, or the opportunity, and I knew you said you weren't going to, well, two things. I think I thank you for being the chair for the last year.
Thank you.
It's a tremendous amount of work. I think we can all recognize how much work and how many extra meetings there are. So thank you. And then on the housing production plan, I know that we're not talking about that or content of that.
Mm-hmm.
I just, process-wise, want to understand what we're doing, because we're going to put it back on the agenda next week. We have the local planning committee that we got, along with a consultant, to present a housing production plan and a local comprehensive plan to the board, but it is the board's plan. So rather than, and then I did watch the meeting that I missed, which looked more like a debate to me than it looked like the board then weighing in on said plan. So I have 3 pages of pages and notes, and then I did specifically look at the meeting and listen to the conversation, and I feel like Select Board Member Howell had a lot to say about things that he thought were missing. So are we to just have the debate with the board, because I have no interest in continuing to debate with the committee. I want to thank them for all the work that they did, but at this point, is it edits from the board as they agree on, and then given to the planner and Ty and Bond to finalize the agreement? Because one of our housing advocates tonight, said, if you pass the plan, if not, you'll be a year behind. I have zero interest in passing something that has so many holes in it related to, or broad statements, because we're going to be held accountable for everything that's in there, and being it's a 10-year plan, I think it should be pretty detailed on areas of housing, types of housing, instead of just a broad subject. And what I got out of that meeting, that I watched a couple times, is there is things missing. So how do we perceive this going forward? Is it us sending all of our thoughts in, us presenting all of our thoughts at a meeting, and then getting getting the planner to do a final draft?
So the LCP's request was, was to give any revisions so that they could review with Christine, with Time Bond. There was an email that Joyce had shared that indicated why certain things couldn't be changed because of the way that they parallel to federal things versus local and state. So Don, I think, voiced his items at the meeting, and
They weren't captured.
but we're supposed to be getting the final, because I thought that Joyce said, share your thoughts, share your revisions, so she could provide a revised document. She does not feel currently that she has that revised document, so to your point, she's waiting for that feedback. So I would say that also, in sitting in that meeting, having read the previous plans, you know, our problem has only gotten worse, right? It's the same problem that we had even 10, 14 years ago, 2010, so I guess it's 14 years ago. And ultimately, our problem is worse. The varying factors aren't that much different. And even in the conversations that we've had about the other housing initiatives going forward in town, you know, the infrastructure's there, not there, that we should be working on over all these years, that we haven't done anything. So I think it's important that we look at this and figure out, how do we move this forward? I don't want anything to sit on a shelf, but that is what happens ultimately, right? So, I mean, if there's something else in there that you see or you don't like in there, feel free to say it. Say what you want out, say what you want in.
Yeah, thank you. And a lot of the notes are based on that. It's based on a report or a plan that talks about what percentages we have to hit to get and how quickly we have to hit those percentages. But it then contradicts itself in the same plan about the environment and about the infrastructure and then there's on some of the more global partnerships that they talk about in there's no cap to it. So how are we going to sit here and talk about the very limited resources is one of the things it says in there, but we're going to be okay with a 250 unit. I'm only using that one as an example. I know they took it out, but there's no cap on the projects that we're talking about supporting. And I think that the board needs to have that conversation based on all of the information that's in the report, but in a lot of cases, it's a contradiction. I agree that we're going backwards, but we're still one of the towns that are progressing forward a lot quicker than anyone else. And then to administration, I'm just trying to figure out what I'm doing. To administration, we have a housing coordinator, but we don't have anyone monitoring the shy list, because our shy list number now has dropped down to like 4.3%, but if you talk to the assessing department, nobody has come into the assessing department and offered up full taxes. So, and then in the case of Pine Oaks, they said, no, it's still part of the project, but it's been reduced from that number. So are we 6, are we 6.9? Has anyone started paying full taxes on their projects yet? I guess, how did we get there, and why has nothing changed in assessing? And then who for the town is monitoring that? Not for an answer tonight, but for an answer for the conversation when it's on the agenda. But certainly on my mind, and there is no math factor in there that says if we stay on the course that we're on and all the projects on deck, 2.2%. So we're not at 4.3, and if you add up everything, we're in really good shape compared to other towns. And I have zero interest in creating a plan to just solve to the state's 10%. When they're doing such a horrible job with everything else in the state, maybe they ought to get off that and stop ruining communities like they're ruining the state. So I've got lots of notes, lots of thought. I just wanted to know how we wanted to proceed with them.
Well,
and LCP, they did their job. They did it well. They gave it to us. It is now on us. I don't have any interest in debating back and forth with the LCP, only this board.
And, you know, ultimately, it's something we have to do, unfortunately, every 10 years, so. Any other comments on that before we go to Town Administrator's report?
It's not a comment, it's a question for the next time we meet, because Joe and I talked about this informally. It doesn't need an answer tonight, but I just want to know, because everybody's holding this sort of Damocles over us, saying that if you don't do this plan, all this stuff's going to happen to you. I'd like to just get a recap in our discussion of it when it's back on for just what those ramifications are in practical terms to the town. You know, if we had to wait a year for the production plan as opposed to approving it now. So.
And will you also follow up with Joyce if certain things have not been put in there that you made? Because I thought you
She had said she was putting it in. All I know is that the red line version I got doesn't have what I said. And as a matter of fact, I kind of presumed what our traffic study was going to say, and Michael slogged through it. For me to watch it again, it would be more like a PTSD flashback. So I'm not doing that. But I'm telling you that one of the things that I said was that we need to either make an explicit statement to support an examination of our critical infrastructure, and by that I don't mean just housing. I said particularly roadways, and that we needed to have a commitment stated in the plan because that is the only way for us to be able to do the building. And if you go back, and unfortunately, this is going to be a Jeff comment that he's not going to like, is like, I'm back 20 years ago now. The original housing production plan in the early 2000s, which I think Pete might have been involved with actually, talked about scatter site housing, which is why I talked about 8 to 10 units here and 8 to 10 units there, because that was our strategy, to absorb people within the community. And that's not anything that I saw, appearing in the plan either. So those two things are really important to me, as well as what Christie was talking about tonight, is trying to figure out how we can streamline the process for smaller providers to be able to do something without having to put in significant thousands of dollars worth of engineering fees to even be told whether they're going to be put on an agenda for the planning board to do anything. There's a lot of, we have to figure out how to make some sort of express process for the smaller providers, or else they're just going to not do anything in this town.
Well, I think ultimately, the people are going to get involved in creating housing if it somehow creates some money, some income for them. They're not going to do it for free. And ultimately, we've sat here for the last, at least since I've been on this board, since 2016 with the break, where we weren't getting anything. And now we have a couple projects, and we hope that they, come to fruition. But ultimately, we need to do something.
And I think that Michael's got a good point here. We need to review the SHI list and what's going on with the original Pine Oaks, because they had made commitments through HUD loans that encumbered their deeds with deed restrictions for a certain period of time. And I know that they timed out. But I also know that they're charging affordable housing rents to the properties. But if we're not getting credit for that, then something's got to change. They either have to recertify for a certain period of time so that it can be put back on as a deed restriction, or it's nice that they're charging affordable rents, but we're not going to get any credit from the state for that unless there's some formal process that certifies that belongs on the SHI list. That's how the 10% is determined. If you're not on the SHI list, it doesn't count as part of the 10%.
And if you don't have a housing production plan, I don't think you're eligible for certain monies. So
I'm more interested in if you walk through.
I'm just pointing that out. I'm not arguing with you.
No, I get it, but I'm just more interested in if you walk past the threshold, is there a ceiling above your head? And the plan doesn't do that.
Pete, do you have anything?
I guess I'll go down memory lane as well. So the
Jeff likes memory lane.
I look at it that these plans are prerequisite, as someone was just alluding to, from the Commonwealth. So they can check a box and say that we submitted it, and now we're eligible for all these funds or opportunities, and I'm not sure what those are. But to talk about the yesteryear piece that I know Jeff's looking forward to is, if I recall, these documents were created by the town planner, the planning board. Now we have a housing advocate that could put a plan like this together to appease the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And then if you want to spend $150,000+ on consultants, we could bring folks in to work with our town planner, housing advocate, planning board, to create the real nook and cranny document that talks about the specific zoning changes that are required, the specific areas in town where either land is available for development or redevelopment, the actual specifics. Again, this isn't a criticism of the committee that's put together. They did exactly what they were charged with and what the Commonwealth wants. And nor is it a criticism of the consultants, because again, they were hired to complete what the Commonwealth wanted completed. I'd rather see us in the future spend money on the details and just submit the paperwork to the Commonwealth as cost effectively as we can to appease them.
Yeah, well, and if we're going to do that, I think the other part of that is, as I understand it, I have not studied it at all, is the new legislation that the governor rolled out, which has some things by right, so,
It scares the hell out of you.
you know, there's some other things, right. It's kind of like the alcohol stuff, so. Anyway, whatever way we're going to proceed, we'll talk about it again. And any comments, revisions, whatever, share with Joyce and the committee so that they can at least incorporate them. Joe, Town Administrator's report?
Excuse me, thank you, Madam Chair. There are 3 contracts that I'm going to go over, as well as an update on a recent matter that impacted our website. First of the contracts, there is a contract that was awarded to Global Solutions Group Incorporated. This is the ongoing project being managed by our town clerk, as well as supported by our IT director, for the digitization of records. This contract was a result of a request for proposals, which was then advertised in the Goods and Services, on-coms by, and the Cape Cod Chronicle on the town's website. Town received 4 responses ranging from $72,080 to $105,840. The proposals were reviewed, and the low bidder, Global Solutions Corporation, was found to be the most responsive and responsible bidder, offering the lowest price. References were contacted, and a contract was executed in a not-to-exceed amount of $75,000. As I mentioned, this is a project that's being managed by our town clerk with support from our IT director. The funding was through a community compact grant, and between this and the existing contract with Laserfish, our town clerk anticipates the digitization of up to 75,000 records, and this is a project that will begin this year and continue for many years going forward, as long as it takes to get our paper, of which I am a producer of much, digitized, if I've said that right. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Second contract is a contract for consulting services, specifically a contract with Crescendo Consulting Group, LLC, and this consulting is for professional services for development of a community action plan. This contract follows on the Health Department study for Lower Cape Community Health Needs Assessment. So now that we have the assessment, we're now hiring Crescendo Consulting Group to help develop an action plan to meet those needs that were identified in the assessment. As was done with the assessment process, this contract is also funded through the town's available sources for opioid settlement. So it's a great use of our team using that opioid settlement money to gauge the needs of our community and now get an action plan to meet those needs. And the other contract is also for consulting services. However, it was for our finance director, town accountant search consultant, Karen Shanley, who you heard from earlier this evening. As I had announced before, the contract was not to exceed $10,000. This was a goods and services contract that dovetails with Chapter 30, and you're already starting to see the work that Karen Shanley is providing for you. And then last is a quick update that I received. I have more in-depth if the board is interested, but the town experiencing an outage, so to speak, on our website last week, which came to the attention of the town late afternoon, Monday, January 20th, which I know is a federal holiday. The issue, as we knew then and still understand, centers around a SSL certificate. I don't know what SSL stands for, but I know it says...
Secure socket.
What's the L? Okay, anyway.
Get that far.
Long story, Larry, indeed. Long story short, the town is still waiting for a report of action from Civic Plus, because everything that we've identified seems to go back to the outage was caused by Civic Plus. The town certificate never expired, but their records showed that it did, and that's why the security certificate was no longer valid, and that's why people were getting the message. However, I want to emphasize at no point in time was there any threat to the town's records. This was not a hack situation, and as Sarah and I get more information from Civic Plus, we'll bring it back to you folks, but in the meantime, our IT director has indicated a number of monitoring steps that she's taken in reaction to this so that we have better information when Civic Plus does not return our calls. It is fair to say that Sarah was in immediate contact with them and did not have any satisfactory responses from the vendor until Tuesday morning. So she will continue to monitor the website situation generally as she does, and specifically for Civic Plus for them to explain what actually happened on their end.
If I could, on that point, and
Sure.
and not to throw more acronyms out there, but within the contract with, what'd you call the name of the company?
Civic Plus.
Civic Plus.
Yep.
Do we have SLAs with them, service level agreements?
So the general contract we had didn't go to the level of SSAs. However, we are partnering with Barnstable County IT and looking to have other towns help us explain to them why the customer service response was more than inadequate and to try to get a response. It's fair to say Civic Plus has very much a corner of the market, if you will, for town websites, municipal websites, but the lack of engagement, response, and community service is just not acceptable. So we are still reviewing our rights under the contract. We really want to get their report so they can explain what they saw on their end before we take any definitive action.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And just so you folks who aren't computer tech, folks like myself, secure sockets layer. Layer.
Layer.
Thank you.
Never had to actually explain what the L was.
Apologies to Larry.
Right.
Thank you. Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Select Board report, Pete?
Couple items, if I could, Madam Chair, through you to the interim chair and to the town administrator. Hoping we could get an update on the letter we received from the ZBA chair regarding meeting space for large meetings. Again, doesn't have to happen tonight.
The meeting tomorrow.
If we do have an answer tonight, can I give it?
Sure.
In response to that letter, Brian and I are meeting tomorrow to go over that, but I've already assured him that administration and staff will support his regulatory body as they go forward to make sure they're comfortable with every space they need us to use for them.
All right, excellent. If we could just get an update after your meeting, that'd be fabulous.
Before you go on to the second.
Sure.
And as I said to the administrator earlier this evening, the available inventory of rooms is greater than just that one ask in that letter. So, I mean, and I know you anticipate having that conversation with him based on all of the possibilities.
I believe it's happening on the 3rd with the financial update, but will that include year-to-date numbers on income and expenses?
Yeah, so presently what Ed and Megan Green are tracking is all of the sources that we typically rely upon, and to validate them, to evaluate where they're at with them, ongoing numbers. An example would be estimated local receipts. So right now, we have all of that data for those receipts through December 31st of '24. So we're going to continue to populate that document as we get to and through town meeting. And it's to do exactly that. So when we talk next week and after about estimated local receipts, an example would be we were anticipating 15.1 million, and our mid-year, if we can call it that, had us trending at greater than that 15 million. So we'll want to talk about estimated receipts versus actuals as they come in and the prior year actual.
And so that's where I was
Yep,
going next, right?
exactly.
So if we can show comparison to Q2 of last fiscal
We're
year.
trying to track that actively as we get it in the spreadsheet.
Okay, thank you. And will we see a debt schedule next on that 3rd?
You can. We're evaluating the debt service, so that's ongoing. So let me step back for a minute and say, what I'm working on is a draft Appendix B, as I've said before, which is that 3-pager that shows all the operating budgets, all the departments' operating budgets, salaries, wages, expenses broken out, and then the semi-fixed and fixed costs. We'll give you that latest draft, because some of the numbers on the semi-fixed and fixed still aren't solid yet. We have forecasts. Beyond that, what Ed and I are relying upon is our 1-pager that we inherited from a former finance director, Carol Capola, that was referred to as our sources and uses. So we're going to demonstrate presently where all the sources of funding are coming from and that are available, and where the expenses are. And so that is the front-facing piece of an array of spreadsheets that dial into it. So what Ed can present is the debt schedule that we have to report to the Commonwealth. It's the DE1, and that shows everything up to date as far as what is on our books, both authorized and issued and authorized and unissued. And the broader debt schedule, as we understand it through our financial advisors, we typically get that every year in the spring. So what we're trying to capture, and what I think you're looking for, is what is the year-over-year debt service? The number is expected to go down in '26, but as I've said before, I don't like that, because when you compare '25 to '27, '27 is expected to be higher. When you compare '27 to '26, it's going to look even higher. So we're trying to capture all of that in simple-to-use documents with all of the background data. So that's something that Ed and I meet on regularly. So what I'm trying to give to you is, you'll get a PowerPoint presentation from me that is, easy to read and understand. You'll be getting as much background as we have on those documents, the Appendix B and the sources and uses, and then for the 10th, far more data that's there. So if we don't capture it next week, we should be able to capture it by the 10th.
But we may not have the 5-year outlook or whatever the number is for the debt, for the debt approved but not yet incurred.
Correct. Right. We may not have that early on, but we will have that over time.
Okay.
Yep.
Because I think that's going to be a huge piece of how we move forward as a community when we start to get so close to the levy limit. And the last thing I have, again, I guess for Mr. Handler, is a reminder that we have amended the public comment and announcement section or policy of the board. And at this point, no disrespect to the ladies in the back, we still have town employees addressing us during that time period as opposed to a separate spot for them. That's all I have.
Noted.
Don?
Nothing other than to just double back to support what Pete just said. It's been an area of concern. It remains an area of concern that accrued obligations that are, about projects that have yet to be borrowed. It's real important that folks show up at town meeting and know that just because your tax bill didn't have it this year, nonetheless, there's this many millions of dollars that we haven't yet borrowed that you're going to be looking at in another year or so that you've already approved. It's not us raising the taxes. That's why it's really important that everybody see that contextually at town meeting before they approve yet more projects.
May I respond through our presiding officer?
Whoever that may be.
To build on that, but what I'd like to set for expectations is what you're going to get next week are preliminary numbers with a budget message. It is going to cover all facets of the budget. I'm going to be talking about where we are on salaries and wages, where we are in expenses, where we are with the requests that have been presented for enhancement of services, where we see the numbers next week and as we go forward. That's meant to be the opening message for everybody to hear, but for me to present to you, the board, first. Then on February 10th, everybody will see more information. Ed and I hope to get that information to you, the board, before everybody else. So there's more of a narrative happening on the 3rd with a deeper dive with data on the 10th. Mr. Spellman may not be able to join me on the 3rd, but he will be present on the 10th.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Anything else, Don?
That's all I have.
Jeff?
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to you for your time, your effort, your work, your counsel to me. You're important. You made a difference.
Thank you, I
You're
appreciate that. And I'm happy to help with whatever, so.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Michael?
All set.
And I'm all set.
Move to
So,
adjourn.
Please. All in favor? Aye.